Good afternoon, dear students. In the previous class, we have learned about statistical inquiry and two stages of statistical inquiry. They are planning and preparation. Second one, execution of surveys. In planning and preparation, we have learned the four factors which are considered for planning and preparation. They are object of an inquiry, scope of an inquiry, units used for collection and measurement, sources of data, method of collection of data, framing of format, accuracy level. Next was execution of this survey, setting a team of administrators, designing of questionnaire, selection and training of enumerators, field work by enumerator and supervision, follow-up work in the case of non-response, analysis of collected data, preparation of the final report. Next we have learned was the collection of data. The process of enumeration together with the proper recording of results is known as the collection of data. We have learned the terms, that is investigator, which is the person who conducts the statistical inquiry, and the enumerator is the person who collects the information for the investigator, and the respondents or informants are the persons from whom the information will be collected. Next, we have learnt about two types of statistical survey. They are primary data and secondary data. The two types of data under statistical survey, they are primary data and secondary data. The data which are collected for the first time directly from the field by the investigator is a primary data, and it is original in nature, and it is also called as the first-hand data. Next, methods of collection of primary data. First one, direct personal observation, indirect oral interview. Third one, information through agencies. Fourth one, mail questionnaire, and fifth one, schedule sent through enumerator. In these methods, three methods we have learnt in brief. Today we shall continue with the fourth method of collection of the primary data, and that is mailed questionnaires. Now we shall see what is this mailed questionnaire. Mailed questionnaire is nothing but a list of questions where the answers are filled by the informants. What is a questionnaire? Questionnaire is a list of questions where the answers are filled by the informants, and these answers are required information for the investigation. For an investigator, he prepares a questionnaire, the list of the questions which the answers are filled by the informants, and these answers are the required information for the investigation. The questionnaire is sent to the respondents who are expected to write the answers in the space provided in the questionnaire. The questionnaire will be sent to the informants through mail. Covering letter is also sent along with the questionnaire, requesting the informants to extend their full cooperation by giving the correct information and return the duly filled questionnaire with a fixed time. And this method is appropriate in the cases where the informants are spread over a wide area and are literates. This method is being applicable, or it can be fulfilled if the informants are used to the wide area, or they are literates. So the questionnaire which is sent to the respondents who are asked to write the answers in the space provided in the questionnaire. Next, we shall see the merits of the mailed questionnaire. The first merit is this method is most economical. This method is most economical means it is bit cheap. It saves manpower. Second one, it saves manpower. A person can manage all these works. Third one, it can be widely used where the area of investigation is large. If suppose there are too many investigations, then this method is very useful. First one, it is economical. Second one, it saves the manpower. And third one, it can be widely used where the area of investigation is large. Next we shall see the demerits of mailed questionnaires. The first demerit is this method cannot be used if the informants are illiterate. If the informants are illiterate, this method is a failure. Second one, this method, many informants will not respond. In this method, many informants will not respond. In case of non-response, then follow-up work is essential. So the chances of not responding is more, and in case of non-response, then we need to have follow-up work. Lastly, moving on to the last method, that is schedules sent through the enumerators. It is widely used method of collection of primary data where a number of enumerators are selected and trained for this purpose. Now, in this, the trained investigator collects the data through the enumerators, and the enumerators contact the informant and collect the information, which is called a schedule method. In this, the trained investigator, first he collects the data through enumerators. Next, the enumerator will contact the informants and collect the information. This is called as the schedule method. Now, schedule is a list of questions where the facts will be supplied by informants and recorded by the enumerator. Schedule is nothing but the list of questions where the facts will be supplied by the informants and recorded by the enumerator. Next, moving on to the merits. In this method is very useful where informants are illiterate. This method is very useful, that is the investigator contacts the enumerator where enumerator will be meeting through the informants, and if suppose the informants are illiterate, then this method is very useful. In this method, the rate of non-response is less. Since the enumerator will be reaching through the informants, the rate of non-response is less. So these are the two merits of a schedule sent through the enumerators. Next, moving on to the demerits. This method, the enumerator needs an essential training. The training of the enumerator is essential. If suppose the enumerator is not trained well, then he is unable to collect the data and form the data. Next, this method is time consuming method. Third one, personal bias of the enumerator may lead to the failure of inquiry. If suppose the enumerator is partial towards some of the informants, then this may lead to the failure of the inquiry. Next, we shall see how to frame the questionnaire, how the questions are framed, and what are the necessary principles we need to consider while we draft a questionnaire. While drafting a questionnaire, the following general principles are to be considered. The first one is that the number of questions should be as less as possible. Whenever you prepare a questionnaire, the number of questions should be as less as possible. Second one, the question should be simple to understand. the questions, if they are very simple, then it will be understood by everyone. So the questions which are framed in the questionnaire should be simple to understand. Third one, questions should be arranged logically. Questions should be arranged logically. That means the logical sense when we need to follow when we prepare a questionnaire. Answers to the questions should be short. Answers to the question should be short, either in yes or no type, either in the form of yes or no type. As far as possible, questions regarding personal matters should be avoided. More and more, the personal regarding questions should be avoided. Any clarifications, if necessary, regarding any of the questions should be supplied in the form of footnote. Footnote any clarifications, if necessary, regarding to any of the questions. If suppose some of the short forms or any of the asterisk forms are there, then we need to mention those in the footnote. Footnote is nothing but the note below the margin of the questionnaire. Next, seventh one, necessary instructions should be given to the informants. Before we give the questionnaire, necessary information must be given to the informants. Next, eighth one, questions which require mathematical rigor should be avoided. Mathematical type of questions should be avoided. A questionnaire should be attractive. Whenever a person or an informant read the question, those should be attractive. The questions are so framed that the validity of the information supplied by the informants can be cross-checked. So the questions are so framed that the validity or any of the information supplied by the informants should be cross-checked. Next, questionnaire should also assure that the information supplied will be kept confidential and shall not be used for disadvantage. The informants have the trust over the enumerators, and the investigator or the enumerator, or when he frames the questionnaire, must assure that the informations which are supplied from the informants will be kept confidential and will not be used for the disadvantage. So these are the 11 principles which are very important and which are considered for the drafting of the questionnaire. A very important question, dear students, so kindly make a note of this. Moving on to the next one, that is secondary data. We have learned about primary data and the methods of the primary data. Next, we shall learn about secondary data. Secondary data is nothing but the data which has been already collected by the enumerators and analyzed by the enumerators. The data which is been already collected and analyzed by the enumerators, and secondary data is also called as a second-hand data. Primary data was called as a first-hand data, and secondary data is called as second-hand data. Next, we shall move on to the sources of secondary data. The various sources of secondary data can be divided into two categories. The sources of secondary data are divided into two categories. First one, published sources. Second one, unpublished sources. Published sources. The word itself means publish. Publishing means the official publications of the governments, of the central government or the state governments, journals, publications in the journals, newspapers and periodicals, website of the various organizations on the internet. This is nothing but means publishing some of the news or the data. Next, unpublished sources. The most regarding to the statistics, unpublished sources means the records which are maintained at the government offices. Some are the records which are maintained at the government offices, those are unpublished, or the municipal offices. Next, record maintained by the research institutions or the research scholars, etc. So the records which are published on the official publications of the international bodies, journals, newspapers and the periodicals, these come under the published sources. Unpublished sources, that is the records maintained at the government offices, municipal offices, research institutions and the researchers, scholars, etc. This is just the flow chart how the collection of the data is divided into two types, that is primary data, other one is secondary data. The collection of data is divided into two types, that is primary data and the secondary data. Now this primary data is divided into 5 methods, that is direct personal observation, indirect oral interview, third one information through the agencies, mailed questionnaire and schedules sent through the enumerator. These are the 4 methods how to find the primary data, how the data is being collected. Next, secondary data. There are two types of the sources how the secondary data is being collected, that is published sources, and the one is unpublished sources. Next, the information regarding an inquiry is being collected by the two ways. They are census enumeration and the one is sample survey. These are the two terms or the two ways how the information regarding to a particular inquiry is being collected. Let us learn in detail now what is the census enumeration. The definition: a complete enumeration of each and every unit of the population is called census enumeration. A complete enumeration of each and every unit of the population is called census enumeration. Census, you have heard, that is the population of India or the population census of India. It is being conducted once in a 10 year. So this is the census enumeration, and at this time the particular data is being collected during the census. During the census, the data related to every individual in a particular village or a particular area is being collected during this census, and the data is being collected of every unit of the population, whether it may be the male, female, or the number of materials that are being there within the required area limit. Next, we shall go on through the merits of census enumeration. Merits: first one, the results are more accurate and reliable. Second one, the data are collected from each and every unit of the population. Third one, it provides the detailed study of all the units of the population. Census method is free from sampling errors. These are the 4 merits of a census enumeration. First one, the census will give us the accurate and the reliable result. Next, second one is nothing but the data is being collected from each and every unit of the population. It provides the detailed study of the units of the population and it is free from the sampling errors. Next, demerits. Demerits, first one, non-sampling errors are likely to be more in census enumeration. It requires more money, labor and time. It is not possible in some circumstances where the universe is vast. While procuring the data, if the unit are damaged, census enumeration is not suitable. Non-sampling errors are likely to be more in the census enumeration. It requires more money, labors, and the time. It is not possible in the some circumstances where the universe is vast, and procuring the data if the units are damaged, census enumerations is not suitable. Next we shall see about sample survey. What is a sample? The representative units of a population is called a sample. The representative unit may be a part or a portion of a population is called a sample. An enumeration based on the sample is called a sample survey. An enumeration based on the sample is called as a sample survey. So whenever sample survey is asked, we need to write the meaning of sample as well as the sample survey. The theory of sampling has been developed recently, but it is not new. In our day-to-day life, we have been using the sampling theory without knowing about it. For example, a housewife tests a small quantity of vegetable before a purchase. Whenever a housewife goes for the purchase for the vegetable, either she accepts a sample or she rejects a sample by surveying it. Next we shall learn the merits and demerits of this sample survey. Merits: this method requires less labor, less time, and is economical. Second one, sample survey is more scientific. Third one, this method is applicable for those units which are destructive in nature. Fourth one, sample survey is free from non-sampling errors. These are the 4 merits. Next, demerits: sample survey requires adoption of appropriate sampling method and an appropriate methods of analysis. Second one, the population is too heterogeneous in nature. The use of sampling procedure is impossible.